Welcome to Teen Up, a podcast that digs deeper into the thoughts of teenagers' mind about the wonders of the world.
If you're new here, I'm your host, Isabella.
And I'm Glenn. If you're not, welcome back.
Here is a quick disclaimer. We are two teenagers that are doing our best to research everything. However, we are not experts, so if we offend anyone or say something wrong, we want to apologize in advance. Please email us to tell us what was wrong. Thank you.
When it comes to death, the reason for death is often asked. Therefore, this week, we will talk about murder issues.
We also have a special guest today to discuss with us her thoughts on murder issues. So, there is this book called Aggression and Violent Behavior, and this book is made to understand murders. So, the basic conclusion of this book is that the common quality of murderers are autism spectrum disorder and head injury. Okay.
Right.
So from this book, the researchers found out that these murderers, they're unable to connect with the society, and somehow the way they talk is more like monotone with like no emotions within the way they talk. And there was this person called Adam Lanza. The researchers found out that this person at like around 10 years old started to have issues like anxiety, problem with social interactions, insomnia, can't really focus, and like problems with learning. So this is just one example of the research they did on the people. And like basically I said that their conclusion was autism and head injury, right?
Right.
So like it has to do with something like about their nerve system. Like they aren't like they have some issues with that. So within this research, they took the murders that started killing people, like the cases that went all the way back to 1985, and they did this research on 239 people. And there was a high proportion of people that had autism, and another high portion had like injury to their head. And the other people, they have had past bad experiences like traumas, like being raped or stuff like that. And it has caused them they tend to have murder tendency. Okay, so this book said that we should help these people as soon as these problems are found. Like autism, we should like help them and give them the attention they need. But I'm not saying that all autism people are like this. So it is very important that people know that autistic people are not harmful. A lot of them are actually very harmless. They're very good at following the laws and rules. So, but they're just more sensitive than normal people. So this book said that autism are more likely to kill people because they're more sensitive and easily triggered. So like little objects or little sounds could make them think of past traumas and cause them to do more violent things.
Oh, okay.
Right. Another thing about like murdering is that other research has shown that actually that there are no ways of predicting if someone is capable of committing murder, which I think totally makes sense. Like we shouldn't just be putting people with autism and head injury like into the box of murder, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Like you cannot just say people with autism is going to murder. That is like insane.
Right. But the book only said that because that was their research result.
But it's like I think maybe it's more somewhere like like it's one way, right? Like people who murder others has a high chance of having autism.
Right, you can't say it the other way around.
Yeah, like people with autism doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna murder people. It's just like very logical.
Right. So science says that there's no telltale signs to see if a person is going to commit a crime. So here's this question that comes into mind. Then like if we're incapable of knowing what others are capable of, do we know what we could potentially do?
Wow, this is getting more philosophical than I thought it's gonna be.
I know. But I thought that this was an interesting fact because I have thought of this question before. Okay, so the article says that, most of us have actually thought of about committing murder. So I personally have thought of committing murder. It's not like I am going to do it. It's just a thought that comes into my mind.
Right, I get it. It's just like how you look at somebody you don't like and just like, oh, I want to kill them. Like,
right. Yeah,
it's
things like that.
not serious, but it's just like a thought.
And research has shown that most of us have thought of killing someone. So this person called David Buss, he said he's a professor of psychology at the University of Texas, Austin. So he surveyed 5,000 people for his book called The Murderer Next Door: Why the Mind is Designed to Kill. So he found that 90% of the men and 84% of the men have thought of killing someone, which I think it's totally normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's actually that we are biologically predisposed to violence in certain situations. So like we all have, there's this person called Douglas Fields. He's a neuroscientist and the author of the book Why We Snap. So he said that we all have the capacity for violence because in certain situations, it's necessary for our survival. You don't need to be taught defensive aggression because it is a life-saving behavior that's unfortunately sometimes required. So I feel like it's totally normal because, I guess not in the modern world, but like the past humans, they have had experience with, super dangerous situations that the only way we could save ourselves is to kill people.
Wait, I do have another thought here though. So again, from our international affairs class, we actually talked about how violence doesn't, equals to aggression. Like it is two different things, and there's like instrumental violence, which is using violence to do something that you want to do. Say you rob a bank, not because you're, born to be violent, but because you want money.
Oh,
So I guess this is just like another thought here. Like we are not. I mean, we are aggressive. Like humans are born to be aggressive, but not necessarily violent.
So right, humans are aggressive, but I guess some people are just, softer than others. So
Definitely.
to deal with those people that, have over like too much aggression, Douglas Fields said that people should be, helping these mostly middle and high school students because they're still at their young age and they could be easily triggered by small things and trauma could still be happening around them. So like they should be educated and they should be helped by others. He says you can use the biology to help a teenager understand specifically why they're angry and that it's a misfire. So there's no advantage in an aggressive response. So what he's saying here is that, middle school and high school students, they're going through this phase of teenage years. So like sometimes it's hard to control their anger and, their life might not be as smooth as other people. So it is important that they're taught to handle their anger and not, hold it in or like hold it in and do something violent in the future.
Oh, like you just hold it in for like a long time and one day it like explodes.
Yeah, it's like those people who get bullied at a young age and then like they finally have the ability to own a gun that they go to school and do a shooting. Like we want to prevent that, right? But like some of the people that don't actually do murder is because of societal pressures, like cultural norms or like legal guidelines, like the laws. Even though our biological impulses to murder is very strong, we still don't do it because we're controlled by, these laws and rules.
So like what I'm thinking right now is people cannot really prevent others from having thought about like murders because humans are we're murderers. Not like seriously
That
we're
sounds bad.
murderers. That sounds bad, but we think about it and we are, aggressive. I guess what it is saying here is that we like the society should try to control these thoughts and like not make them come true. Or like if we can deal with these thoughts before they become real actions, then we can prevent murders. So like the book title you said, like Why We Snap, I think it really explains the situation here. It's because somebody snapped and something just pushed them over the board, like people with autism, and if they are triggered, then they could do something unimaginable. And if anyone is triggered, I think it could really cause them to commit the crime.
Right. So after the break, we're going to invite our guest into this episode from your Monday Mail podcast.
Welcome back. Here is our interview with Ahana from Your Monday Mail.
Let's start off with your podcast intro. You could just read your descriptions, or how would you introduce your podcast?
Hi everyone, my name is Ahana and I'm the host of Your Monday Mail podcast. On my podcast, I talk about personal stories, experiences, advice, and I also talk about social issues. And I upload new podcast episodes every Monday.
Okay, great. So this season, we're just talking about death and some murder issues for this episode specifically. Do you have any opinion on murder issues?
I mean, as much as I'm against unlawful killing, which is pretty much always, I think it's necessary to understand the background of the killer. Not that any excuse can be justified, it's just that it's always helpful to gain insight on the psychology of the killer and what probed them to commit such acts and also their relationship with the victim. Honestly, I believe that it's a very thin path to tread on.
Right.
I do think the points that you brought up are very valid and like very important points that sometimes people just like overlook and not really paying attention to. Like you said, the murderer's relationship with the people being killed.
Okay, so the next question is, what do you think that the governments should do to prevent like these murderers from committing the crime?
Honestly, the government does not realistically have control over an individual's actions. But I also believe that the government can take necessary steps to include child-friendly policies to ensure mental stability in schools from a young age to prevent such aggression from growing in the future. Because a lot of the times it also stems from, as I said before, childhood phases and incidents. And in the end, it also comes down to one's morals and values, right? But I also believe like the government can take actions by providing mental health services for the people with this kind of pent up frustration to talk about their problems instead of just directly act upon them.
So wait, is there anything that they're doing right now?
I mean, we do have a lot of mental health services. The government provided mental health services, but I still believe we are quite a long way from actually providing them to the whole country yet. Because as a nation, I still believe that we are very reserved when it comes to talking about mental health issues in India.
I think that is also the case in Taiwan. Like, people are not really talking about mental health. It is getting more and more attraction these years, but I guess maybe we're having like similar cases. Like, people are not really paying too much attention to that, but maybe it could be one of the reasons that like cause these murders.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of the times it's because of the underlying aggression. A lot of the times it's because of unresolved issues because we aren't just ready to address the fact that we may have a problem because of our inconsiderate attitude towards mental health issues.
So, I guess moving on to the last question, it kind of relates back to our previous questions. It's that, what do you think are some ways that could be used to deal with these criminals instead of like killing them?
There are just so many ideas that I have, like which I could probably put in theory, but I'm not sure if they might work practically. But I do have a few points, and actually, a few days ago, I was talking to my friends about this. We were just discussing, and we were just thinking that the government, while they are in jail, while they are serving time in jail, they could take necessary measures in the jail itself to prevent such behavior from occurring in the future. And also in psychology, we currently learned this aspect of psychology called corrective therapy, where the murderers are not brutally having to pay for their crimes, like, for example, crime or being shot in the head with a gun. But they also understand their side, and no matter how irrational it may seem, they are accordingly treated with the necessary facilities in order to get them back into society without being a threat to it. So I just feel like there are a few corrective measures we can take.
So you would say that there are remedies that could kind of like correct these murderers' behaviors.
Yeah, I mean, not extreme actions, but rather milder remedies.
Okay, so like through education, right?
Yes, yes, through education. And also like understanding their point of view. I mean, of course, during such cases, it's not always, it doesn't really seem rational to try and understand the killer's point of view, but just to gain a bit of insight, as I said earlier, on what they were thinking and mindset during the time of killing someone.
I would say understanding their motivations and like their point of view is like very important. And like it can prevent future events from happening, I'd say, because like other people would know why it happened, so we can take preventative measures, or like we know what aspect of mental health we will be aiming at, right?
Definitely, I agree.
So I guess like basically education is really a main part to preventing and stop people from doing this, and it should like start really early, like from childhood, and the government should definitely do more to care about its citizens and everyone's like well-being.
Okay, I guess this is it for the interview. Thank you again, Ahana, for coming on to our podcast today.
Joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Ahana's podcast is Your Monday Mail, so remember to check out her podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Remember to like, subscribe, and share our channel.
Also, comment down below if you have any thoughts. You could click on the bell to get notified when we upload a new video as well.
Thank you and bye.